What's up YouTube, Capital G here, doing a quick discussion on one of my favorite cards of the meta. It's a card that has not really been talked about that much, has not received a lot of notoriety from YouTubers or players, but it's a card that's really good this format in the main or coming out of the side deck. That card is Time Space Travel, and actually shout outs to Blair from the Card Guys. He's the one that kind of brought this card to my attention. He ran it in the main deck at ARG Charlotte in his ABCs, and it kind of just it made me think, like, why did we stop playing this card? It's not like the card ever became bad, and in this format I think the card is absolutely excellent because there's a lot of decks that simply cannot play around this card. You guys know what this card does. It's been out for a couple of years. I believe it came out in Duelist Alliance. There was a lot of hype, but I don't know, I feel like maybe it was released at a bad time, a time where, you know, like Necros were about to become meta. We had things like Cleaford, decks that weren't super susceptible to this card because Cleaford didn't necessarily have to use their Pendulum Summon. They could just tribute or, you know, do other things like that, summon towers and just kind of sit on it. Or Necros was a deck where if you hit the Trishula, it doesn't matter. They were still just gonna, you know, wreck your field and wreck your hand, everything like that. But if you look at this card in the context of this format, doesn't just about everything kind of just get wrecked by this card? Like, there are so many decks that are high end that basically rely on one major extra deck summon, or they rely on the Pendulum Summon to kind of get their decks rolling, or to, you know, get a really big established field. If you look at this card and you look at like ABCs or heroes, I mean, we all know heroes want to put Dark Law on the board turn one, and then generally they want to complement that with a Bahamut Shark and a Totally Awesome. If you're able to hit like Bahamut Shark with this, I mean, what type of field do they have? A lot of times they won't have the resources to, you know, continue to make a really good board, and all they're basically sitting on is a Dark Law. That's really not that hard to out. For 1,000 life points, I'll take that any day of the week. If you look at a deck like ABC, we all know how important, you know, Tsukiyumi or Gigagen X can be, their first summon, because generally that's how they get to the ABC Buster Dragon. You can pretty much just, you know, nip that in the bud, just hit the Tsukiyumi, their cards go to the graveyard, they won't summon Buster Dragon, and a lot of times they won't have much of any field presence. Even if you do let them summon the ABC Buster Dragon, they won't be able to uncontact it. They won't be able to, you know, tag it out for any monsters. At best they can do, or at best all they can do is just banish a card from your side of the field, but at that point you've already gotten rid of their boss monster, so you really don't have to worry about that much, and chances are they've consolidated their other monsters into like a Tsukiyomi in defense, so you might not even be taking any damage that turn. A deck like Metalfoes is 1000% susceptible to this card because they like the Pendulum Summon, and they like to go into their extra deck with their fusion monsters like Alkahis and this chick right here, the Mithrylum. These cards are obviously susceptible, but hitting a big Pendulum Summon is really good. And the reason why I think, you know, a lot of people have kind of gotten off of Time Space Travel is because Floodgate Travel and the fact that it doesn't cost life points. But if you look at this, especially, and you think of it in the context of a Pendulum Summon, if your opponent Pendulum Summons a couple of monsters, do you want those monsters going face down so that they could potentially use them for, like, you know, a Metalfoes fusion, or they could tribute them for Kirin or something like that? Or would you rather just pay the life points, spin them back to their deck, and know that you have a huge edge on your opponent for at least a turn and a half? And a reason why I think this card is far superior to things like Bottomless Trap Hole is, number one, it doesn't destroy the monsters. So, you know, there are a couple of cards in the game that's, you know, they're kind of like immune to destruction, things like Magispectors or, you know, Stardust Dragon, etc., etc. But there's actually a decent amount of monsters in the meta that are just, you can't bottomless them. You know, their attack is too low. You know, Alkahist and the Metalfoes, they have a couple of cards that have like 0 attack or really low attack. So those are monsters that obviously you won't be able to, you know, Bottomless Trap Hole. And this card is like the happy medium between Bottomless and Floodgate Trap Hole. Now, I know a lot of people are turned off by the fact that it can cost a lot of life points, but you easily could take out something like a Solemn Strike. I mean, yes, it would cost more life points if you, I guess, your opponent Pendulum Summons 4 and you have to pay 4,000. It's a lot, but you're still going to get kind of the same result as Strike would, where you're probably going to win the game. And I think that this card, even in the matchups where you don't think it would be that good, it still has some pretty decent applications. Like, think about Mermail, right? This is a deck that you don't really immediately associate with the extra deck. I mean, Mermail can easily kill you with just like a Megalo and maybe a Moulin Glacia, and then, you know, they tribute and Megalo can attack twice, and maybe Abyss Dweller. might be the only extra deck monster they need that turn. But even if they don't use their extra deck, you can still send Megalo back to their deck when they try and summon that. You can send Moulin Glacier back to their deck. Abystius, I wouldn't really, I mean, Moulin Glacier, you probably are going to get wrecked at that point. Much better just to Solemn, but you still have the possibility of hitting the Moulin Glacier. So even in the matchups where you don't think this card would be that good, or Blue Eyes, that's another deck that can just kind of beat you down with a bunch of 3,000 monsters, but this hits Alternative Dragon. Obviously, you wouldn't want to use it on Spirit Dragon because they would just, you know, uncontact it out for something else. But if they go for like Azure Dragon, then obviously you could hit that. And since it's not being targeted or destroyed, Azure Dragon just, you know, kind of gets wrecked by this card. So I think this card is really, really good right now. And I don't know, I feel like maybe when Cosmos were really big and all you could hit was like the spaceships, it wasn't that good because Cosmos don't use their extra deck. But if you look at a lot of the best decks of the format, ABC, Metalfoes, Heroes, everything seems very susceptible to this card. And I think it's a very good tech card if you're looking for a non-Solemn card. Maybe you're not loving how Dimensional Barrier is kind of working out for you. This is a card that's actually a lot cheaper. You know, spend $60 on Dimensional Barrier or spend $1.25 on a Time Space Travel. You know what I mean? This card could easily save you in a couple of duels. So let me know what you guys think. I just felt like talking about this card because I feel like no one really I feel like we just stopped playing this card, but I don't really have a reason why other than just maybe too many life points. But we're already playing a bunch of Solemns anyway. So anyways, you guys let me know what you think of Time Space Travel. Do you guys think that it's a very good card right now? Obviously I do. Thank you guys for watching, as always, and subscribe if you have not already.